America first forever. We will not surrender to the globalists.
We will not back down!
USA! USA, you damn well of Illinois! We must change our educational system. It has failed completely. We are not sheep. We will not be sheep. We will not surrender our freedom. We bring power back to the people.
You're listening to Thought Villains with Derrick Gibson and Cara Castronuova.
Well, good evening, people. We are back for show number 2 Saturday. Say yay, give some thumbs up. What y'all doing? I'm here with my co-host, Cara Castronuova, today, and we got a great show going today. She will let y'all in on this secret in just a moment.
Yeah, so we have some very special guests today that Derrick and I wanted to invite on, and we're going to invite them on shortly. First, I want to play a video montage to kind of give you a clue about who our guests are. So, Natalie, could you play that video?
The Proud Boys are people who consider them to be members of this group, give voice to these misogynistic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant views. They're a despicable group by pretty much anyone's standards. So when the president was...
Because the biggest domestic terrorism threat comes from white supremacist groups like the Proud Boys, which the president claims now.
So, Derrick, those are just a couple of news clips I found. It wasn't hard. I think that was the first video that popped up last night when I put when I put into YouTube Proud Boys, that's what came up. So I thought, why not invite them on? I know that you agreed with me on that. There's a chapter here in New York. Actually, there's a few chapters here in New York, and we're going to have these guys on. So I don't know. What do you think?
That was a great idea, but when I was first approached about it, I was like, Proud Boys? The media say that they are white supremacists. Here I am, a black guy. And we bring it on the white supremacists. So I didn't know it was safe to be in the studio today, Cara. But I pumped myself up and I'm here.
Did you use the push-ups beforehand? You never know.
I did a few push-ups.
Yeah.
Punches you taught me.
So, okay. So without further ado, we're going to announce our guests, the Proud Boys, and we're going to bring in Randy, we're going to bring in David, and we're going to bring in Garth.
Okay, people, we're back again. I am safe. I am still here. We have 3 Proud Boys sitting here with us today, and we're going to have a good time. They assured me that I was welcome to be in my own studio today. So I'll let my co-host take over from here.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And like, all kidding aside, we're sort of joking around. We know these guys. We know they're not racist. I mean, we know that they're great guys. They live here in New York. We've come into contact with them on our journey this past year. For me, at least, I don't know how long, Derrick, you've been acquainted with the members of the Proud Boys, but I've run into them at rallies and at events, and I didn't know a lot of them were Proud Boys at first because they're just regular people, really. For me, it was really important to bring them on because I'm a really big proponent of dispelling the myth. I really hate the way that the media has portrayed these guys. I think it's really part of a bigger, horrible agenda having to do with the whole white supremacy agenda, having to do with legislation they're trying to pass through, that they're trying to blame and make these white supremacy groups boogeymen like the Proud Boys. Right now, there's a lot of guys who are locked up in Washington, D.C. from January 6th who are Proud Boys, and just being a Proud Boy is somehow keeping them behind bars. So I just kind of really think that all Americans should be very concerned because they're doing this to a group right now, which is really, as they describe themselves, nothing more than a drinking club. And, I'll let them say who they are. But if they could do this to this group and demonize this group in the way that they have, and I'll let them speak from their own words, they could do it to anybody. So be very concerned about that. And I just wanted America and other people to get to check them out and meet them as regular people and for who they are.
Well, to piggyback off of what you said, I've been maybe following the Proud Boys around me and my children, especially my daughter, my young daughter, for about 3 to 4 years. And what I observed during those times was they were simply protecting the people that love America. That's the only thing I've seen all of these guys. But when I heard it on the news, there was a white supremacist group, and I have seen other races in the group also. I was like, well, what is going on? What is the news media talking about? And I did a little research myself, and I pulled up the Constitution and the bylaws from the Proud Boys. I got them right here, fellas. I got y'all right here. We'll go over this once we hear from a couple of the guys. and I read out some of the bylaws from the Proud Boys, and we'll go forward. And then you'll make your own decision because they are painted as a white supremacist group. And by me being around them for a couple of years, they have protected our freedom of speech and so forth. So you can take it from here, Cara, and then we can bring Randy or whoever you want to bring on at the moment.
Well, I think that's why they're a threat, because they are for freedom of speech and they are for protecting freedom of speech. And I think right now freedom of speech, along with a lot of the other constitutional rights that were guaranteed, is in jeopardy. So I think that's exactly why they're demonizing them, and for many other reasons. But I would like to introduce Randy, who is the president of the Hellgate chapter that's here in New York. And I met Randy when I was marching in Washington, D.C. At the Stop the Steal rally last year. He was marching next to me. He was a little drunk, let's be real. He doesn't remember meeting me. I do remember coming into acquaintance with him that day. He just happened to be somebody I was walking with, and we started talking. And then, I found out he was the president of the Proud Boys, and I was like, really? I think around that time I started doing some research and seeing that, wow, the media is really painting them to be horrible people, but they're not, because I've met them. So what the hell is going on here? It's so confusing to me when I see something with my very own eyes. Like, I'm meeting them, they're normal, they're nice, they're not racist, they're all ethnic diversity, and the media somehow is still saying how horrible they are. So Randy, are you a racist? Are you a white supremacist? You hate me?
I am not any of those things. Absolutely not. There's not a racist bone in my body. And I can say, first of all, I just want to say that I only want to speak on behalf of me, why I'm a Proud Boy, and our chapter. Our chapter is the Hellgate Bridge Crew here in New York City. The bylaws that Derrick referenced is our bylaws to our chapter. There's many chapters around the country, around the world even. Every chapter, for the most part, is autonomous. So I just want to make that clarification.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Randy. You mentioned y'all bylaws in the Constitution. I was looking over a couple of them, and they really stand out to me. But it's something that I agree with completely. The minimum government is number one. Anti-racism, of course, anti-racial guilt, maximum freedom, and we all deserve maximum freedom as long as we obey the just laws of the land. So these are some good things. I'm looking through your bylaws, freedom of speech. Everybody wants freedom of speech, as we saw what happened last year with social media platform destroying our freedom of speech, taking it down. So
absolutely,
these things y'all are standing up for, and I agree with that 100%. But I want to know where the white supremacist group label came from. That's just racking my mind, trying to find out where is that coming in and why they pushing that particular narrative. And when we have black men, Puerto Ricans, and just different people in a member of Proud Boys. So I want to find that out today. I want to pick y'all man today and find out what's going on with the white supremacy.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'll say, especially about our chapter, and to be honest with you, this is true, so many chapters. We have everybody in our chapter. We're a very inclusive group. A lot of times when we go out to rallies and we are in the streets, I think we're more diverse than the enemy that we face in the street, so to speak. So, and again, where a lot of that comes from, that we're racist, that we're white supremacists, a lot of that comes from, people that want to shut us down. They can't win any arguments. You read a lot of our tenets. Right. A lot of people support our tenets. But the way that they attack us and try to shut us down is by calling us racist, by calling us white supremacy. And there's very, very little evidence of any of that, even throughout the history of the Proud Boys.
So those are really good points, Randy. And I know you guys aren't white supremacists. Like I said, I could vouch for these guys. I'll say it again and again. I know that some guys, like Enrique, have come out and said we're not white supremacists. Just like President Trump would say over and over again, I condemn white supremacy, and it doesn't matter how many times he said it. They didn't care. So that's very frustrating. I could understand how that's frustrating. And I want to be able to talk to the other guys too, and just ask them why you joined the Proud Boys. Why? But I'm sure that you heard some of the myths before going in, like Garth. You're rather new. How long have you been a Proud Boy? And I'm sure before you became a Proud Boy, and I know if you want to share, I know that you said you're Puerto Rican, black, white, your whole mix of ethnical things, kind of like me. And I'm sure you heard before you joined that these are white supremacists. So what made you join, and how did you come into contact with the Proud Boys?
So that's a lot. What made me join? I've been a member of the Proud Boys for about 6 months, I'd say. It took a long time for me to even get in contact with the Proud Boys because they were shut down. Their website was shut down. They're canceled every time Randy would put the website up. 2 days later, it would get shut down. So there's it's been an uphill battle just to get in touch. The reason why I wanted to join the Proud Boys was, number one, I like the tenets. I like what they say. It's anti-racism, anti-racial guilt, celebrating Western culture, venerating the businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. So all these things agreed with me. I was a fan of Gavin McInnes. I heard about it when it started. I have a very similar history to him, where I was on the left and I was a punk kid, and I was marching in the streets against Wall Street and against business as usual. And, I was in a punk band called Civil Disobedience. That was the method at that time. And then I learned that anarchy was never going to work. And I started trying to refine and research and understand what I was fighting for. So similar to Gavin, I sort of slowly made my way to where I felt comfortable and where I realized the path that made sense for me. The left was going way too far left. Nobody was waking up, even though they call themselves woke. They're really just a belief system. And if you don't believe in it 100%, then you're out of it. And my whole existence at that time was marching against conformity, against political conformity, mental conformity, social conformity. And I saw them moving more and more in that direction. So when I heard about Gavin starting this group, and it was kind of a joke, it was supposed to just be sort of a men's group celebrating these things, but really just a bunch of guys getting together to have a good time and socialize and be able to hang out together with guys who have similar ideas.
Right.
And I love the diversity of it. He said there's gay people in the group, there's black people, there's people from everywhere. And that's not the issue. What the issue is what we have in common, not how we're different. So as my political awakening continued, and I had my red pill moment in 2014 with the first Gaza war, where I found out the news was lying to us.
Right.
And all the mainstream sources were wrong. The New York Times, everything, Reuters, Associated Press, everything I thought I could go to get unbiased news.
Well, I think that a lot of people like you have realized that lately. You realized it in 2014, and I honestly always knew that instinctively, but it wasn't until Donald Trump really, I think, brought it onto the mainstream and really kind of let everybody know.
He woke a lot of people up to it. He pointed the finger and said fake news.
Right.
And at that time, I was saying fake news. I don't know where I picked up that term, but I was telling my friends it's all fake news.
Right. So could I ask you a question? So how does your family, like when just your family and friends, like when you tell them you're a member of the Proud Boys, I don't know, have they heard of them? What do they think? Like,
I don't have a lot of extended family. It's really just a small core, my nuclear family. They don't know.
Okay, so you'd rather not speak.
So they're not, I sort of liberalized them in my leftist years. And
so now you might confuse them,
back.
right? You might confuse them. But I know that, David, you had mentioned that your family it's hard for them to wrap their minds around you being a Proud Boy because you're Indian American. Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, they don't even think of it as like a racial thing. They're like, why are you part of this group that's, being maligned and causing all this trouble and getting into trouble and everyone hates you, and like why are you putting yourself into that position? And I was like, well, I've been here for the last 5 years, I never told them that I was a member of the Proud Boys until I never told them. They found out on the news.
Wow.
Yeah. They were on watching news on it was a Channel 7 on a Saturday, and then all of a sudden there's this fight going on and they see me in the video. I'm not there. I'm just there, and they're like, "What the hell are you part of?" It was like it was a big wake up call for them. So I'm like, "Yeah, I've been part of this group for about three years at that point." Right. So, and then they were just upset that why are you getting in trouble, that kind of thing,
Right.
So they have their best interest because they want us to be safe, but at the same time they don't understand like what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing, and it's kind of hard to get to them because they have their lives and their families and all that, and there's like, why can't you just do that?
Right.
Well, for me, it feels like I'm standing up for them,
Right.
So, but they don't really appreciate that. So,
right. And you mentioned to me, I remember you said something like, it's kind of weird how your family almost will believe the news before they'll believe you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the worst part of all this. I understand if Governor Cuomo comes against us or Antifa or the media or any other institution, but your family is all you have, right? And you feel like they should be standing up for you regardless of what's going on. And I think that's a big problem here in America. I mean, you see what happened January 6th, and you see people ratting out their own family to the FBI, it just is bizarre. And you see that in America, you see that in some other countries, but other countries, they don't even understand why people would do that to their own family members. So I think people need to really wake up to that here in America. It's like your family's all you have.
Right.
And if the situation was reversed, if my family member got attacked by a bunch of Trump supporters, I probably wouldn't be a Trump supporter at this point, So
Right.
it's weird that even this situation where we're getting attacked, they still identify or on the side of the attackers than your
So
own
I have a
family
question
member.
for you. You was drawn to the Proud Boys. So what are you planning on doing to send a signal out that you are not a racist group, you're not a white supremacist group, and what actions do you take as being a member of a Proud Boy? What is the definition? What I'm trying to get to. What is the reason there are Proud Boys? What is the reason?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess maybe Randy or Garth might have different answer to this question, but for me, I'm doing what we've done since day one. I've been here since late 2016, and it was always about let's meet up once a month, let's just hang out, let's have a good time because the world around us seems kind of messed up, right? And even if we go to the bar and maybe we have like one good interaction with one person, let's say we meet up, every month for a year, we have one good interaction with another person who's not a Proud Boy. That's 12 people in a year. That's like, oh, the Proud Boys are not that bad, and then they talk to 12 people and they talk to 12 people. And then after a time, I think that's the way we kind of get
so
to
my
the
question is
people,
pointed towards, like I was saying from the beginning, when I've been following this thing for about 3 years, and all I see is protection for freedom-loving people. So is that the bottom line, that you step in and you protect? You don't stand around and just see people getting harmed for actually, maybe let's say for instance, wearing a Trump hat, 'cause that went on for a long time. Would you get involved in that and try to protect a citizen? Is that the bottom line, to protect freedom of speech, like your bylaws? It's in your bylaws, I see in there. So is that the bottom line, to protect the rights of everyone?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the group has evolved to be sort of like that, but we didn't start like that. We just met up once a month at a bar, and then some people would cause some beef with us, and they think they could take their liberties against us and assault us, and we're basically conservatives that fight back, right?
Right.
I don't think there's any other group that does.
Conservatives, because
I would think so. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I mean, there's not two Proud Boys that have the same belief
Right,
system.
of
Definitely
course.
not.
I'm sure
And-
there's a lot of libertarians. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, there's a lot of libertarians.
Right.
There's a lot of people who are more pro-government. There's more. I mean, I think those core values, that's not something that was instilled. It wasn't like I just joined some random group and you have to believe these things. These are values that I grew up with as a kid.
Right.
Like I was taught these things in public school. We talk about the indoctrination of education system, how it's bad, and
Right.
people want to take their kids and just do homeschooling and all that. I don't think that's the right idea. I mean,
Right.
I learned all these values from the public school system. That was our community, and that was the social contact that was given to me as a kid. And now I see it totally being flipped, and now
Right.
they're indoctrinating kids to do the exact opposite. So this is very,
Right.
this is
Could
very
we pull
basic.
up the graphic of the tenants of the Proud Boys so people could see what we're talking about? These are the tenants, which is basic stuff. God, hello, America. This is like common stuff that we learned when we were all kids. Minimal government, maximum freedom, anti-political correctness, anti-drug war, closed borders, anti-racial guilt, anti-racism. We'll go against, we'll talk about this all more later. Pro-free speech, First Amendment, pro-gun rights, Second Amendment, glorifying the entrepreneur, venerating the housewife, reinstating a spirit of Western chauvinism. The last two we could talk about because they could be a little bit misleading, but I know what they mean. But these are basic stuff that, they're your belief system, and somehow people are equating this by saying you're a far right group. So you're in the far right because you believe in freedom of speech and you believe in the Second Amendment. That makes you on the far right. It's pretty insane to me.
It's all insane. It's totally insane. But Randy, coming back to you, do you remember in New York when we had the red hat guys, Curtis Sewell? What's the name?
Curtis Lewa.
Curtis Sewell's
The Guardian
group.
Angels.
We had
He's
the
running
Guardian
for mayor,
Angels,
right?
which some people tried to paint as thugs or whatever, and it turned out to be real good. So what I am really saying, because I myself riding the subway system, and I see people get attacked, and I see people sit around and they film, they does nothing. Is that something the Proud Boys do? Or do they sit around and look at innocent people getting hurt and does absolutely nothing? I think this would be something that would be well addressed through the Proud Boys. for as trying to protect the freedom of people because it's in your bylaws. So
absolutely. And let me kind of back up a little bit. When I first moved here to New York 9 years ago, when I first moved here, I was actually interested in joining the Guardian Angels. But, I mean, it didn't happen. I didn't find out the contact information and that. Me, personally, I wanted to become a Proud Boy, and a lot of this started back in 2016, when you saw a lot of violence erupt, especially on the West Coast. Berkeley, Seattle, Portland. Right. I would see some of the videos there, and it's like everyday Americans coming out with American flags, celebrating that they're a patriot. And it would dive into getting attacked from Antifa, getting assaulted, rocks thrown at them, hit over the head with bike locks. That would infuriate me. And where a lot of that infuriated me from, I'm an Air Force veteran. And I served this country. And I served this country because, and again, the one thing I want to say about veterans, there's two things. One is, as a veteran, we take an oath to the U.S. Constitution, not to a political party, not to an administration, to the U.S. Constitution. And so I think I share that with the vast majority of veterans. More importantly, especially when it comes to racism, let's say. When you go into the military, I was in the Air Force. I went through boot camp. I spent my entire military career with people from all walks of life. Blacks, Asians, Hispanics. And you learn really quick. You don't see color. It comes down to good people, bad people. You expose the bad, right, and you gel with the good. And that's really, a lot of that I think comes out of my military background. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of that also transforms into why I wanted to become a Proud Boy. There are militia organizations and stuff out there, but it's like when people's First Amendment rights are being assaulted, you don't see the 3%ers out there. You don't see the Oath Keepers out there. Now, and I'm going to touch back to a question you had asked David. First and foremost, Proud Boy fraternity is a drinking club. It's about like-minded men coming together, having fun. First and foremost, that's what we're about. So we all share. And someone, ultimately at one point in time, someone said, we are a drinking club with a political problem. And I think that sums us up best. Right. The second aspect of that gets out into when things do happen out in the streets, whether we go to rallies or protests or whatever. In large part, we show up primarily to be secured for security purposes, to make sure that the people that are out there exercising their First Amendment rights are able to do that in a peaceful way. We don't look for violence. There's very, very few instances that you could ever find where we start the violence. But at the very same time, if it starts, we'll do everything we can to end it and end it very quickly. Right. And that's the one thing. So I just wanted to mention that. You and I have known each other for almost 2 years now. We've gone to Back to Blue rallies. Right. You've been a very good friend of mine for a long time.
Why don't we show that clip really quickly of it's called, so now that you bring it up, I was going to play that later, Derrick. It's kind of a fun video. It was on my phone. This was it's called something having to do with Washington, D.C. What is the file called?
November rally, I think.
Thank you for your service, Randy.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing that. Million MAGA March, video Million MAGA March 2. Let's play that video. Look, that's Randy. See, look, it's you and Randy. Right. So that's Randy and Derrick. I saw that on my phone. That was before I knew Randy. And this is the Proud Boys. They were marching in D.C. This was the Million MAGA March last year. Getting a lot of love. There's me.
That was a great day. I mean, we had so much fun that day.
I actually remember that.
That was December.
Is that it?
So I was basically like the cheerleader with the megaphone. That was when I was going through my megaphone days where I felt like I found this new voice, but I don't need it anymore. It's weird. I used to like to yell and scream into that thing. I was like, go Proud Boys, yeah, go Bikers for Trump. I was like cheering them on as they marched by, and they were getting a lot of love that day. I remember people were coming up to Derrick, like you mentioned, and saying thank you so much, and I know that meant a lot to you guys because I was at were you at the first rally, the first Stop the Steal? We were there, and I was with some friends who really who were actually from another country, and were in shock when they actually came first into contact with Antifa, for the first time. We were sitting eating sushi, and all of a sudden the energy just changed. I remember this. Everything, like you just saw something like a black cloud. Like go by the window, and then all of a sudden you hear the police sirens, and then there was fist fights, and it was just crazy. And I remember Proud Boys just jumped out of nowhere and fought these guys off, and then I was like, that was the second Stop the Steal rally when the Proud Boys showed up
in December,
and I'm like, now they're gonna have to fight someone their own size, because before the rally before that they were hitting women, they were hitting children, they were picking on people, and now when the Proud Boys came to the second rally in December, all of a sudden they kind of met their match. You know what I mean? And they weren't as vicious. So it was insane. That was an insane experience, and that was the day. I mean, I know it meant a lot to you, Randy, when people were coming up to you and kind of giving you guys a lot of love and knew your name from around the country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember that night vividly. We were all in the hotel, and we started seeing the videos come in where stragglers kind of walking home, getting assaulted. Antifa going in and throwing fireworks into diners. And more importantly, they were headed by the thousands to the 5 hotels where they felt the most Trump supporters were, with the intent to burn it down with people inside it. And I remember talking with the guys that was at the hotel that I was at. We need to be out in the streets. This is what we came here to stop.
Right.
And 15, 20 minutes later, we're out in the street where I was, the hotel I was. They came up one way. We went out. We met them. The cops came, did their job. They turned around and came back from the other direction.
Right.
This was happening at 5 different hotels at the very same time. And then that ultimately led in, I want to say about a half hour later, we headed, I think it was towards the Freedom Plaza. And that's really where there was probably a 3-minute clash. After that 3-minute clash, you never saw, for the next 24 hours, you never saw another BLM or Antifa in the streets doing anything.
Right. So,
and that was probably one of the. I've been to a lot of rallies. I've been to a lot of events all around this country, and I have to say that was probably one of the best ones.
Right. And from what I've seen, I think Derrick agrees. You guys are very positive guys, very friendly guys. Derrick, you've hung out in the bar and stuff like that with these guys. Let's not out Derrick. He is friends with a few Proud Boys. We were just pretending we didn't know them. We know who these guys are. Derrick has been drinking with them and hung out with them, and they're just a bunch of fun-loving guys. So when this media demonization comes along, it's scary. Like if you guys could just pull up a Google search really quickly, or on Proud Boys, like type in Proud Boys or type in Proud Boys into Wikipedia. Right away, what comes up, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has deemed them a racist hate group.
Mm-hmm.
That's what comes up right away
and
on
number
fake
2,
Google.
Wikipedia, that page, we can't even edit anything on there.
Right,
They had that on lockdown, and they changed whatever the facts, whatever they want
right,
to.
Neo-fascist, chauvinist, exclusively male, like what the hell does that even mean?
Can put something on Wikipedia.
I don't even think anyone knows what that means anymore.
Exclusively male organization.
Political violence.
Isn't that the definition of a fraternity?
Right. So exclusively male.
Can I say something about the violence aspect of it? Because this is, people go, why would you join this group when this is what they're talking about? I didn't join the group when it was just a drinking club because I didn't need just a bunch of guys to go drinking with, whatever. Right. But when I started seeing the Proud Boys at rallies showing up and protecting people, not engaging in violence, but one of the first people, I think, is Tiny Tosa. Yep. He was just this big guy. I've always been a big guy. I've always been very protective of my friends. I've always been, this sort of quiet, gentle, but tough-looking guy. But I've never gotten into fights.
Right.
I've never gotten into a bar fight. I'm not looking for it. I don't want violence. I don't want anyone to break my nails.
Right.
I'm going to be, I'm going to try to intimidate by just being strong and appearing, whatever. And so I've always had that attitude towards the people around me. And when I saw that that's what they were doing, to me, they weren't looking for fights, but I would see they would line up in between Antifa and the other people. And I would just remember seeing Tiny standing there, not throwing a single punch and having people bounce off of him and throw things at him. And I thought, you know what, that's what I do. That's where I am. And I think that showed me this is where I can be of more use, or I can be more helpful in this battle, this information battle, and this sort of ideological battle.
Right. So, Derrick, I don't know if you have any other questions for these guys I wanted to kind of move on to talking about some political topics to get to know, so the audience could get to know them. I just think it's important. Like, okay, let me just say that there's a lot going on right now. Derrick and I talk about it all the time in America. There's legislation that they're trying to pass and they're trying to blame it. Everyone here, you turn on your phone and before you know it, white supremacy comes up on some sort of Bing or some sort of Yahoo or some sort of news. Domestic terrorism, it's this whole new thing, domestic terrorism, and how we have to punish these domestic terrorists. And they're trying to make groups like this synonymous with domestic terrorism. Right. So I think that's kind of why I wanted to bring these guys on today. It was just to kind of show America that they're a drinking club, that they believe in freedom, that they're mixed up ethnically. It's not just guys that look like Randy. Sorry, they don't all just look like him. Well, not that there's anything wrong with that, and that's not that there's anything. I'm not making you feel guilty for being white. Don't worry, I'm not like that. I know that that's a thing. That is a thing right now.
We have got to let the people know that a lot of people I talk to, well, Google said, well, this said, I be like, they manipulate every single thing on here. It's manipulated. So you have to look beyond what Google say and actually put your eyes on it, maybe follow them around and see exactly what is going on, because you can't, this information here is tricked all kind of ways. You can't believe what you're reading. You can't.
You have to investigate for yourself. This is what I did. I thought, okay, I've heard all of this. Let me go find out about them. Let me talk to them. The moment I talked to Randy and had one phone call with him, I was like, I agree with everything this guy says. He's totally exactly on board. I don't hear any of this crazy rhetoric.
And I feel like this is living proof, America, and anyone watching, that this is living proof that Google is fake, the internet is fake. It's just fake. It's like you Google their names and what comes up is they're racist, they're chauvinist, they hate women, they hate everybody. They're violent, right? Every other stereotype you could come up with, and I like I said, I could personally vouch for these three guys that they're nice guys, normal guys, family guys, don't have racist bones in their bodies, don't have sexist bones in their bodies, they're not Islamophobic, they're not homophobic or any of the above. So it's just such an illustration of how fake everything is right now when it comes to the internet.
It's a war of words. They were using these words. They stringed together. Far right. I'm not far right. Chauvinist. Because we say male chauvinist, not male chauvinist.
So what does Western chauvinist mean?
They equate that with male chauvinist.
Western chauvinist.
Chauvinist means preference to,
so,
right?
So they chose to use
Western culture.
Right, they chose to use the word male chauvinist. And then idiots in the news, Western chauvinist. Could you play the clip? It's CNN dummy reporter, I think I called it. There's a fake news reporter. She's a nightmare beyond imagination. Just haggling Enrique, the poor thing. I mean, I don't know.
This was great, though.
Right.
Enrique just destroyed her here.
He did, but this is loaded question after loaded question.
You're showing up. Is it to antagonize the mayor or the city? Because there are people here, people of color in particular, who I've talked to that feel like they're being terrorized because of some of the language that is used by groups like yours against them. And you call yourself male chauvinist, right? What does that mean? That's out there on.
She doesn't shut up.
It's not male chauvinist.
What is
Your
it?
viewers can watch that.
Western
chauvinist.
Okay, Western chauvinist. What does that mean?
That was false? That what you just said?
No. What does that mean? What is a chauvinist? What do you mean?
A chauvinist is somebody that's patriotic and extremely proud of their country. So you tried to twist my words and say that my group is male chauvinist. There's a big difference.
I'm letting you speak about it.
No,
I'm letting you speak about it.
No,
I just said Western.
You said
I said male chauvinist. Then correct myself.
Is this a reporter or like a freaking terrorist? She's the terrorist.
They think male chauvinist. They think of people.
All right, you can cut her. I can't listen to her. And fast forward. We actually go to the end of that video. Then Enrique. I didn't think if you put that video really quickly back on he got another interview with her.
Also has a history with the FBI after being sentenced to
and then she rips him apart again. He actually agrees to a sit-down interview with her after January 6th, and then she proceeds to be a terrorizer. Like she's not a reporter and she should be ashamed of herself.
The one thing that I just want to mention, and it goes back to the Hellgate Bridge Crew bylaws and our Constitution. One of the things that we do not support in any way, shape, or form, and we don't tolerate in our chapter, is any kind of ethnic nationalism, whether it's white supremacy, whether it's anything that has to do with color. America is for everybody. The U.S. Constitution is very clear about that. Our Declaration of Independence is very clear about that. So, I mean, that's one of the things that you had mentioned, you had kind of hit on a little bit earlier. And everybody in our chapter, and our chapter is growing. We've been in existence now for 8-9 months, I would say. But we're very inclusive. You know, I'll let Dave speak to this. All that's necessary to be a Proud Boy is you recognize that you're a Western chauvinist. That means you're a defender of Western values, Western tradition.
Yeah, I mean, when they say the word chauvinist, that just means like a rational pride of. That's all it means. So it's like saying like I had the world's best mom, number one mom in the whole world. Is that factually correct? Obviously, no. There's billions of moms out there.
Well, to you it is.
Yeah, to me it is, right? And there's some benefits to having that mindset because, listen, America's not a perfect country, but just having that mindset that we can't just write it off and dismiss it. Let's just try to improve it. You know, that's like any relationship, right? You have to put work into it. And by saying like what Antifa or the progressive left or neoliberals say, like this whole thing needs to be eradicated, we're like, no, let's stand up for that. Let's set some boundaries.
Right.
I mean, that's what conservatism is all about.
Well, Antifa is a true Marxist. Black Lives Matter is a true Marxist. So if you look at their action, why don't the news media press them? Why don't the FBI press them?
Because
They
they're
don't
useful
do that.
idiots right now. That's why.
That,
you know.
to bring
It's
in
unfortunate.
an agenda.
And I'm not saying every Black Lives Matter activist, because I actually have met some that are really awesome. But I do feel that the movement is just the movement.
It's been hijacked.
It's been hijacked, exactly. Like the heart is there. I really mean that. I do know a couple of good ones, but Antifa, you know, it's too much.
There was an article that just got published a couple of days ago saying that the overwhelming majority of Americans are against Antifa. So, I mean, they're obviously being protected somehow. And like you said, they're just basically pawns for the establishment.
Right.
So that's why I think even as Proud Boys, like to talk to other Proud Boys and tell them this, it's like if we can't be defined by this other group that everyone hates, it's not that novel, you know? So it's just like if you want to go after Antifa, you're literally going after a pawn, which is fine. But remember that pawn is being backed by rooks and kings and queens, whereas we're kind of like on our own. So, you know, just be aware of that.
Just one thing to kind of throw in that's related to that. I think you can testify to this. You too. When we go out to rallies or events, and let's say there is Proud Boys on one side and there's Antifa or BLM on the other side, any one of them can come and have a conversation with us without any threat of violence, without anything.
Exactly.
Come in, have a conversation.
And we welcome it.
We
So I
cannot
welcome
go
it.
to that other side and engage at all without it turning into violence.
Yeah.
Right.
But
From
yet
them,
the
not
fingers
from us.
pointed at
I've
us.
actually gone up to someone that said he said he was. I said, where are you from? Because he looked like he was taking pictures. He said Antifa, and then I said, oh, maybe you could tell me about your organization. I'm so curious. And I was like, trying to be nice, and he's like, get away from me. And I was like, oh my god, like nobody ever was like, he hated my guts. I was just like in shock. You know what I
think
mean?
an extension of that too is you come around to where we are. Every one of us is always videotaping. How many times I've been in this city, and Antifa's out there with their cameras all masked up, everything. They put a camera in my face. I'm as polite and I smile. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Right.
You do that to them. I mean, even journalists are out there getting the crap beat out of them just for having a camera.
Yeah, in DC, we try to go to Black Lives Matter Plaza, and we can't even go in there. I'm like, if I'm even for your values, can I just step in? And the cops are just blocking that whole thing off, and we're not allowed in there. So it's just crazy.
It's interesting. It's like kind of like the media demonization, and it's very dangerous to society. If they could do it to you guys, they could do it to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, exactly. And I know, like, so we'll wrap up this discussion in a second, but I know that you guys had spoken of media. You know, Randy cannot get a social media account for the life of him. David, if you could really quickly share the story about your banking and how banking is the new.
Mention JPay.
Oh yeah. I mean, slowly we've been losing every account. So I lost my Facebook account, lost my Instagram account, lost my Twitter account. Then the big thing is that they're going to go after people's financials, and it's one thing to be arrested. It's another thing just to lose your job. And I think
and to lose your life.
Yeah. I mean, if someone were to give you the ultimatum, you can go to jail for 2 years or never work again for the rest of your life. People would say, okay, let's go to jail,
Right.
Because that's the hard, everyone can endure the time, but if you have no livelihood, then you can't pay your bills. You can't be politically active. You can't do anything. And so that's where they really want to hit you. And
you lost your PayPal account?
Yeah. Then I lost my PayPal account, which I had for literally since I was like a teenager. I had that for like 25 years. Like
Just for being a Proud Boy.
I was one of the first users of Facebook. I was like user number like 600 or something like that. When they just started opening up on college campuses. I was in college, so I had my Facebook account. I was one of the first Facebook account holders. I lost that. I was one of the first PayPal holders. Again, it's sponsored by Peter Thiel, who's supposedly a conservative, but they took away my PayPal account. They took away my Venmo account. They took away one of my other bank accounts. And they even took away my JPay account. I don't know if you know what that is, but JPay is the system you use to talk to people who are in prison. So, Max and John are in prison right now. So I was using that to send them money and cards like that. And all of a sudden I couldn't log in. They deleted my account for JPay.
So basically, and I've spoken to other Proud Boys who have mentioned like they can't get credit cards. And if they have a business, they can't use credit cards. Like people can't swipe their credit card. They can't actually use it for their business. It's so evil and disgusting. And it's sort of like in China, they have this whole social credit system. And that's what we're moving towards if we keep letting this go, if we keep sweeping this under the rug, because they've painted you guys so badly and as such terrible animals that they make it so nobody feels bad for you. So it's like, all these January 6 guys that are arrested and in prison, we don't feel bad for them. They're terrorists. They're white supremacists. So we'll let that slide. We don't care if they lose their banking. We don't care if they have a social media presence, but then soon it's going to come for you. And that goes for Black Lives Matter and Antifa and other groups on the left. If they could do it to us, they're going to come for you.
It's communism. It's full-blown communism in America now. We're seeing it play out right in front of our eyes. This is why it's so important to fight back. Stop letting the left demonize people on the right. Not even that, just good and evil. We got to stop it. We just got to stop it in its tracks. It's spiraling out of control, and it seems like there's no end, but they are good men. I'm proud of the Proud Boys for standing up, making a stand. It's nothing that I've seen them do that would make me think otherwise. It's nothing in their bylaws that would make me think otherwise. But I don't know. We have got to stand up and say that's enough. We got to take up for the different groups on our side, even the groups on the opposite side. They're trying to kill their freedom of speech. We're there for you. So that's what's got to happen to destroy the narrative that the fake news is pushing all over America. They sent the ACLU sent a letter to my son saying, we want to know something about pushing white supremacy. I was like, really? You send it to children. You're trying to teach them to hate white people. That's the whole issue of it. They just sent this yesterday. And I took a picture of it and I put it out on social media. It's insanity what they are doing. And then people believe, they're experts. They have the clout. Just because they have the clout, don't believe them. The experts have screwed up America completely. That is what's wrong with America today. We have been relying on the expert with no common sense. So they sent this out. I wish I had put it on the screen so you all could have seen it. But it says, you have been selected to represent Georgia by sharing your opinions on white supremacy, extremism, systematic racism, and more. Now, this is the ACLU, sending this out to your children. So people keep an eye on your mail. Find out what is going on. Find out what is going on in the school system, indoctrinate and teaching hate to these kids. So it's very important. Let's fight back. I am 100% with the Proud Boys, but I know what they stand for because they have protected me and my family, and I have seen them do nothing against America. They are just freedom-loving American patriots, and I'm with y'all 100%. And I'm glad to have y'all here today.
We're with you, too.
Thank you.
Especially your campaign for governor.
Yeah.
Anything that we can do to help you out, we're there.
Thank you.
So let's that's why I wanted to move on to speak about political persecution, and it kind of fits right in because the Proud Boys are being politically persecuted. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Biden administration right now. Can we play the clip of Biden? I probably labeled it something like Biden is an idiot, but maybe not. I think I called it just Biden domestic terrorism.
They weren't protesters. Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists, domestic terrorists, domestic terrorists.
I edited that, guys. Yeah, that was me. That whole effect coming in on him. I can't stand the fact that he said that, calling American citizens domestic terrorists. Right. He is the enemy for doing that, for calling. I don't know how many people were at that rally.
Half a million
people,
like that,
or you're saying, or domestic terrorists that were good people. We were there.
I don't know.
Derrick, what do you say to that?
Right. And it's completely nuts. And they're pushing the agenda, pushing the narrative of the left side, and trying to bring socialism to America. But anyone that was on the Trump side you a domestic terror. Not one single one of those people arrested been charged with insurrection. So where's the insurrection? No one, not one single person killed anybody up there, but the exception of the BLM police officer that shot and killed this woman trying to climb through a window. I mean, that was totally unnecessary, and they swept that under the rug. Yeah. But if you happen to be a Trump supporter, they're coming out on you hard. So look for them to knock on your door. My campaign manager door have been knocked on. He
just outed me. Thanks, Derrick, for outing me. No, it's personal for me. I'm a rally organizer and I'm a peaceful protester, and to have a visit from certain agencies come knock on your door when you did nothing wrong, I'm not gonna let's just call them the KGB. Right. Okay. Came to my door and harassed me, and I was on vacation at one point and they ruined my damn vacation. They owe me for that trip. I did nothing but was there peacefully protesting. I have all the proof in the world, so it doesn't even matter. But unfortunately, a lot of these guys, as Randy and I, because we were working as Citizens Against Political Persecution, this organization we're working on together, sometimes the proof doesn't even matter. And I wanted to let you guys know, and this is crazy, I was laying in bed last night, my mind was overactive, and I'm Googling stuff. Oh, I gotta stop doing that. It's so bad. But that guy, what was his name? Jake Angeli Chansley. He's still in prison. This is what I mean. That goofball. He had the
horns on his head.
Horns on his head. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't violent at all. There's video of him physically walking in the door. Yeah. He didn't break in. He didn't attack or anybody. He just walked around.
The cops inviting them in and saying you can walk in.
Right. Exactly. So he's still in jail. And the last I heard on him reading is that 8 days ago they had to order a test that he might be going insane. Understandably so. He's being held in quarantine. Right. In quarantine or solitary confinement for 22, 23 hours a day for months now.
But that's a good example too, because the judge in that particular case wants to make an example of him.
That's right. So can we play? Let's just quickly play the Chansley video. I think he's just a goofball. This is his insurrection right now.
Hey, man.
Being escorted by the police.
Fucking patriots. Look at this guy. He's got
not being chased.
Right. This is this guy sitting on the floor on his phone.
I'm good, thank you. All right.
Hi, Mom.
I got shot in the face.
Yeah. So basically, that's him. This is he's sitting in the desk, taking selfies, dressed kind of silly.
I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know, this is the sacredest place.
I know. Hey, no, I'm gonna take it. Sit in this chair because Mike Pence is a fucking traitor. Well, I'm not one to usually take pictures of myself, but in this case, I think I'm making an exception. Can you and Ray, can you take a picture of me? I'm throwing my phone.
You guys, you can take that off. So that's the guy for walking into the Capitol dressed like an idiot. That's his biggest crime. Okay. He's still there, and the judge, and I want to call out this guy. I'm going to call out. It's a terrible, un-American judge. Oh, that's my binder.
And they all trying to send a message to don't mess with the deep state. That is the message and they're using these guys that they got locked up, these 50 guys to send a message, never challenge us. Exactly. And the Constitution gives us the right, and not only that, we're free to do this, to redress our government, our fair government. And I also said you can remove said government. That capital belongs to the people. It do not belong to the police officer. It do not belong to the congressperson. It belongs to we the people.
It's a public building. Like when you go to England, you can go to London and you can walk into their Congress and you can watch them see and do their legislation stuff. It's this is every American has every right to step into that building. Right. They shouldn't be disallowed there to begin with, and I'm not normally a cynical person, but I have a cynical take. If you're going to call me a domestic terrorist, it's fine. I don't care. I'll wear as a proud. Yeah. I mean, 200 years ago, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, they were the domestic terrorists of their days. So it's and history is going to judge us favorably for what happened that day.
But
so
we
should.
Well, I don't know because they say history. They say history is written by the victor. So it depends on who quote unquote wins. But you can't even say we will win because we might get arrested. If once we walk out this door. Right. I want to quote this horrific person. His name is Eli Honig. He's a former federal and state prosecutor, and he said regarding the Chansley kid. The prosecution has to stand basically that the public's watching the every move with this case because he was sort of like the face of this. So we got to make sure and take that into consideration that he basically gets convicted. Wow. I mean, that's insane. Wow. This person's Eli Honig, you piece of trash, along with Albert Watkins. who is his attorney, and he's basically saying that, oh, my client, he was on the short bus. This is quoting him literally. He's a little bit like mental. He's on the short bus, just like all the other people that were there that day. That guy is such a bootleg attorney. He has the worst reviews. He's like the guy on, you ever see Breaking Bad, like Saul? That cat, like the guy on the side of the bus, but 10 times worse. That's actually a compliment to this piece of trash. And to the garbage judge, sorry, I got to call these guys. I think his name, what was the guy's name? The judge on this case will not let him go because he did an interview with the news, which he should be able to do, and it pissed him off, so he's keeping him in there longer, and he's just a piece of human trash. That judge, he should be convicted of I don't know, cruelty or something.
The worst part about this is media's culpability in all of this.
Right, they're like, that's right. I mean,
these
Derrick,
guys' stories, every single one of these guys that are being detained endlessly. Subject to 23 hours a day isolation.
It's torture.
I mean, anybody who has never, ever been in jail, you can't really begin to understand the kind of mental anguish that goes. Some of these guys have been in there for 10, 12, 14 weeks.
Right, and they're starting to lose their mind. How are they going to be fit to stand trial?
Right.
You have to be fit to stand trial.
Right. And I was in there for a month, so I started to go crazy. I was like, what the hell?
And were you in solitary confinement or were you with other people?
No, I was with other people.
Exactly.
So imagine if you're in solitary confinement.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's
crushing.
It's cruel and unusual punishment. It's torture. Right. It goes against every Geneva, any kind of international or domestic rights. It goes against.
It violates
and
so
no
many
one cares because
rights.
they're the bad guys. So yeah, screw them.
So just for the audience to know, there's at least from what Randy and I did research on, at least 50 guys still in a pod in D.C. being tortured right now.
And that's just D.C. There's probably another 40 guys all around the country that haven't even made it to D.C. yet.
Right.
And
I know of at least 12 of them, just, that I know that are being detained, still in their hometown, being transported.
So, and this affects other groups. I want to point out that the FBI does have a name for just so they call Black identity extremists. I don't even know what that means. Like just how they call white supremacists. That's a name the FBI is throwing around for, you know what I mean? So the left thinks this doesn't affect them. But just like this will affect them one day. They can come after Black Lives Matter. Me and Randy found a Black Lives Matter gentleman, Rakem Bologan, his name was, and his constitutional rights based on his politics were completely violated. If you're in an LGBT group, an anti-abortion group, whatever it is, when you fall out of favor and they have no more use for you, they could throw you in prison. Clearly, these men are in prison right now for their beliefs. And everybody needs to take that seriously.
Right. And when I hear people saying, well, forget the nuts. That's insurrection. They shouldn't have been at this nuts. This is the same way that they did black people during slavery and after slavery. They will do them just like that for fighting for your freedom and your rights. They will take these same tactics and they'll use them. They will use them against you to paint you as some kind of rambunctious idiot or whatever. And that's what they're doing with the people locked up now in D.C. on January the 6th.
Right. And the one thing I'd like to just circle that back to would be like the incident of the New York 9. I mean, these guys were railroaded every step of the way.
New York 9, let's just really, because we don't have much time, we'll probably go a little bit over, but just to really inform the audience about the New York 9. And David was there, so I think he's an expert on this. It was a fist fight in the city that was between members of the Proud Boys and Antifa. To make a very long story short, because Antifa was masked, they were unable to be identified. The police pressed charges against, and not the police, let's just say the state, quote unquote, press charges against the Proud Boys, and some of them are still incarcerated for getting in a fist fight where there was no victim. That's the key thing here. There was no victim. Antifa didn't, maybe because they don't believe in going to the cops, I don't know, but they didn't press charges and they didn't want to be identified themselves. So Cuomo and de Blasio went out of their way to prosecute a case where there were no victims. Right. It was a fist fight on the street. These guys are still rotting away in prison. David was there if he wants to speak briefly on this.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's just like they pretty much threw the book at us. Cyrus Vance, the DA, whose dad was a Secretary of State under Jimmy Carter, so like father, like son.
Right.
But he basically threw the book at all of us, and they said, "Oh yeah, we would press charges on Antifa. We could identify them." So we went out of our way to identify them and give them to the police. Like these are the names of the guys who fought us, and then they're like, "Oh well, we're too busy handling other cases. Sorry." So they basically threw the book at us, and they, we got convicted for felony assault, or attempted felony assault, Which I don't
Gang
even know
riot,
that makes
For protecting yourself. I
Yeah.
saw that video, and you're protecting yourself. But
For-
the DA saying, well, they took the flag, Antifa flag from them. That means you're stealing their property. All kind of nonsense.
No,
and
we
that's
ne-
why
yeah, we never did
that's
any of
why
that, yeah.
that's why they were charged, so-called charged. They took their property.
But the one thing I want to mention though, they're going to use this. You watch as the case is proceed from January 6th. They're going to use that now to try to railroad other guys in the same kind of way.
Right.
And
and I want to point out the legislation that's in HR Bill 350. Schneider, I think, is the jerk-off's name that wrote this legislation. He's a congressman or whatever. And almost all Democrats are behind it. It hasn't been passed yet. It's a legislation basically giving the government, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, the FBI, aka KGB, the ability to investigate you more and spy on you more. It's like the Patriot Act times 20 million, and they're using the whole bill. If you read it, it's white supremacy. We need to fight. And then it says in a small print, and other groups. Like, we're trying to hide this behind white supremacy and other groups. So when those other groups turn out to be who are people are for against abortion, or an LGBT group, like I've said, or maybe, I don't know, any other, a BLM group. Once
The
you fall out of,
GOP,
right, at the
Republican
GOP,
Party,
conservatives,
American
Trump supporters, American
Yeah.
citizens, right? White guys, I don't know, half Asian and half Italian people. They might just come after me. I don't know. That might be the thing. Whatever it is up to their discretion. And what makes it so, I'm sorry, it gets me so mad is there's a clause in there. It's like called the material clause. Like, they could spy on any one of your associates, basically.
But Cara, this is nothing new. It's been done before. It was done with Malcolm X, Dr. King, all that. And like I said, I'm going to reiterate it again. The black community have done this. And we see the very tactics that they use on our President Trump was used against black men forever. It was nothing new to black men. The news media, the black community never believed in news. So all of us, what the hell did we start believing in the news media? And the FBI, we know these people from way back. We know they did to our ancestors. We know all of this. So now the tactics are being used against every color if you don't think like they think. That is what it is. So we got to stop that.
Exactly. And really, to quickly quote from the ACLU, who I have mixed feelings on, but, they said, we don't look far to see how existing laws that claim to target domestic housing. No, you don't need, basically the ACLU is saying that these type of legislation and laws will grant the government unprecedented power to surveil and criminalize communities of color. These laws have been weaponized to harm some of the same communities that are suffering disproportionately from violence in America. They're actually against this type of legislation, the ACLU, because they fear how it could affect the people past the quote unquote white supremacists. How we know, I think I would rather square off in fist fight or just in general deal with a white quote unquote white supremacist than the FBI and the government. So you should be way more afraid of the FBI and the government than you are of these so-called white supremacists. That's just my opinion. I mean, Derrick, what do you think? Would you be more afraid of the government or the white supremacists?
As a black man raised in the South, I never seen a white supremacist in my life, and I was around all different type of people. So I'll be afraid of the government more than anything else. The white supremacy is the government. That's their cover. That's all.
They are the white
That's what it is.
supremacists.
Yeah.
The left always projects, right? So a lot of people on the right be like, white supremacy doesn't exist. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you got a leader of the free world, is Joe Biden. He's a white guy. So if there's a white supremacist, he's in the White House right now.
The news media and the government, that's the white supremacy. They're pushing that narrative.
One of the things I will say in defense of the ACLU, because they did get this right at
Well,
least.
they said what they said
when
was
Obama
true.
was pushing through the follow-up to the Patriot Act. When he was pushing that through, the ACLU came out and said, because he wanted, essentially what happened in that bill, you have foreign terrorists where their civil rights are taken away. They can be abused. They can be held in Guantanamo Bay for years on end, indefinite. Obama, underneath the follow-up to that, which I believe became like the National Defense Act of whatever, 2012. But the point is, under that act, that then took the very same things that applied to foreign terrorists to domestic terrorists.
Right. And
the ACLU spoke up very strongly against it and said it's going to go down in history, that Obama created the biggest civil rights abuse in the history of America.
So people think they think that this legislation, just because they keep using that boogeyman white supremacists to hide what it really is something so great when it's really going to give the government more reason to spy on you and your family. And like I said, it could criminalize it criminalizes providing material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization. That means it could broadly include propaganda, fundraising, group membership, with no requirement to show any connection to furthering terrorism. So it's just a nightmare legislation, and this is what they're trying to get by under our noses as they race bait us, as the news tells us to hate each other. They're doing this all in the background.
Right, and that's what it's all about. It's to terrorize you if you're an American-loving citizen of the United States of America. They want to terrorize you. They want to send a message out. It's insanity, and like once again, we got to stand up. We got to elect patriots to office so we can wash all this away. The Patriot Act was a disaster within itself, and now they're going further and further out with it, and it's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible if we don't get it to collapse.
Right.
It's like anything else. It's become a slippery slope all in of itself.
Right.
And people have to realize that we're not each other's enemy. The left and the right, the government, right now is the enemy because they say the enemy is foreign and domestic. The domestic government is the enemy, not domestic terrorists. Right. You are trying to squash freedom of speech, take away gun rights, take away constitutional rights, make us hate each other. You and your little friend, the media, is, getting together with this conspiracy to make Americans, me and you should hate each other. I'm Asian, you're black, you're white. Right. We should all hate each other. We shouldn't be in the same room right now, and we are. And that is freaking threatening to the government, so they keep on with this BS, and it's driving me insane because I'm a person that comes out of love. I hate all of this.
Right, correct. And I do too. I feel where you're coming from, but I seen it from day one. But I always look at everybody as another human, as a United States citizen, as a brother or sister, whoever. I don't look at color, never have looked at color. So we all should come together and push back against this so-called government that we have now, which is completely fraudulent. I don't care what anyone else say. It's a fraudulent government that's sitting there now. And I'm not afraid to do that. I'm big, I'm bold.
Absolutely.
That's what I do.
And that's the very definition of America first. Yeah. And I think that's the one thing that all of us unites all of us. If you're an American and you want to put America first, right? And it's America first policy.
Buying into the same system.
And I think that we could all say and end on this, that it doesn't matter what political spectrum you're from. We believe you have freedom of speech. We believe that you have all the same First Amendment rights that we do. Absolutely. It's not like that's just reserved for us. So when we fight for these things, it's for the right, it's for the left, even Antifa. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? You guys have a right to hate us if you want to.
I say that a lot when I meet Antifa in the streets or BLM. When I was a veteran and I fought for this country, I fought for their right.
Right.
But the moment you step across that line and turn it into violence and use violence to shut other people down, that's where we have an issue.
Right. So we're going to end soon because, guys, we could go on for hours and hours, and I wish I could talk to you all more. This is a great guy. I'm telling you. He's such a sweetheart. David, Randy, but we're running out of time. I kind of wanted to give each one of you guys kind of a minute to talk and kind of make a plea to, I think, not a plea, I just think talk to America and let them know why it's so important that this myth about your organization is dispelled, because it's so closely tied, I believe, and that's why you guys are important, to this crazy agenda that the government and the justice system is trying to push right now with the January 6ers and with the, quote unquote, domestic terrorists and quote unquote white supremacy. So, Garth, if you were talking to, say, your grandma, like what would you say in 30 seconds to let her know who you are and why it's important?
Me in 30 seconds.
Yeah, give it a try.
Okay. First of all, the media is using words like insurrection when it was an incursion. This happened. Left-wing groups have done this over and over and over the years, but they use these words to separate us and divide us and to create animosity. And there should not be this divide between the left and the right. So who benefits? The government, the people in the government, whether they are on the left or the right, as long as they keep us fighting each other. So to me, it's listen to the people, talk to people. If you want to ask questions of people, ask questions of me or anyone else. Don't just believe what you're being told. This is all just a war of words that's being used to divide you from the people that you love, from the people you grew up with, from people that you could be sharing information with.
Right.
So
that's really well put. And last question to you on the just coming out, as a person of color and other things in your background, do you feel when you came to is the Proud Boys, in 10 seconds, a racist hate organization?
So since I've joined, that has been my focus. Are these racist? I'm very against anti-Semitism. That's my number one focus. And I have not found any evidence that there's anything in the Proud Boys that is racist, that is anti-Semitic. It's also full of lots of different guys and lots of different opinions. So you can't say it's anything.
Right, right.
It's not
you
a
can't
monolith.
speak for everyone.
Right.
But you could speak
But
for
what
you.
I can say is that's not just not our chapter. That's not what the Proud Boys stand for. That's the opposite of what we stand for. So I've learned that by being here, by investigating for myself, putting myself in the middle of it, and seeing what it's about.
And that's the only way you can investigate is doing it by yourself and not watching the fake news. And I say that to my family all the time, who tells me I'm going to a riot when I'm going to a rally, who tells me that I was like, I'm like, I was there and you were not. You know what I'm talking about, David. Like,
you're crazy. Why would you do that?
I was there. I saw it, and you don't believe me, but you believe the fake news. It's you have to do your own investigation. You have to get off your lazy ass and go out on your own and see with your own eyes, not watch it through the lens of a news camera. Randy, if you could give the last 30 seconds of an appeal to whatever, like explaining who the Proud Boys are and why it's important that this myth is chopped in half.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I think I've been to a lot of events all across this country. I've stood with a lot of Proud Boys. And like you guys say, there's a lot of people with a lot of different, I don't necessarily agree with everything. A lot of people don't necessarily agree with me. But at the end of the day, Western culture, Western values, freedom, minimal government, this is the tie that binds all of us. It's not racism. It's not white supremacy. It's none of that. And there isn't a place I can't go in this country and not have brothers that I can go and hang out with. And Dave can speak to that. Aside from that, it's like, the Proud Boys were a drinking fraternity with a political problem. But our political problem shouldn't exist. This is America. Right. We are the last free country in the world. And we need to fight. We need, regardless of what comes, we need to fight for that.
Right. And like somebody said, I heard this, it was somebody at the Republican convention last year. If we don't have America, then where are people going to go?
Exactly.
We're the last free country.
Right.
It's very scary.
As Ronald Reagan once said, we're going to condemn our kids to walk into 1,000 years of darkness.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it. I don't think you can overstate what this fight really means.
Right. And
that's
David,
why I'm all in.
Thank you. And that's awesome. And Randy, thank you for being here. President of the Hellgate chapter. I mean, if you're interested in joining the organization, Google it and send in a form, and Randy will personally read it and evaluate if you are a Western.
HGBCNYC.com.
Right. And David, any last words?
Yeah, I mean, my brother was in the Navy, and he went to Iraq and Afghanistan and all that, and I asked him about his experiences there, and he said about the Afghans, and specifically, how come we can't win against them, and he said, because they're just not going anywhere. We have all the military might in the world, but these guys are literally going to die on that hill, so they have nothing to lose, and that's why no one could beat them. And I think for people, especially in this area, who identify themselves as conservatives, like I think I said earlier, is just about setting the boundaries for yourself. A lot of people, after what happened in the last year, they're like, forget this. I'm moving down to the South. I'm moving down to Florida or Texas. Well, those places are becoming bad also. There's nowhere you can run from this. So you don't have to join the Proud Boys. It might not be for you. It's not for everyone. But honestly, I think we're too big as it is. So start your own men's group or women's group or whatever, and find a way to get engaged. Just don't go into retreat or don't run away, because honestly, I don't think there's anywhere to run. So if you want to join the PTO, or maybe you don't need to run for office or whatever, but just stand up and carve out a place for yourself and say, no, this is no more.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you guys for being here. I think Derrick will let's give him Derrick, as everybody in the audience knows, is running for New York State governor. Mm-hmm. And he's someone that you need to follow because his platform is awesome. His personality is awesome. He's a people politician. He's a populist. He comes across to the Democrats, the Republicans, and everybody in between. And I just wanted to have Derrick close out, and your last thoughts on the Proud Boys, on white supremacy, on racism, on the way that the media and the government are trying to divide us in the country right now, and your final thoughts on that, Derrick.
Yeah, I want to thank the Proud Boys, the three fellows, for coming here today and explaining what you are all about. I like what you stand for. I saw your bylaws. I agree with them 100%.
You gonna join?
I may be a Proud Boy myself.
Let's do it. You gotta know 5 breakfast cereals. Though.
Right. So this is Gibson for New York State Governor. Follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Gibson for New York State, Facebook, Derrick Gibson, Instagram, the same thing. And this is my beautiful co-host, Cara Castronuova. You can follow her. Amazing. And our podcast at Thought Villains on Twitter and Thought Villains on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Let's get the message out. Let's wake America up, people.